Knock, knock on the farmhouse door. The man downstairs, the camera family.
Are you referring to Carrie-Ann camera?
The story opens in Oregon during a bleak winter in the early 1970s. Snow gently covers the ground as a young girl steps outside her modest house. The neighborhood is quiet, shrouded in the cold embrace of the season. As the girl walks down her street, her breath visible in the frigid air, she notices a car parked suspiciously nearby. Its windows are fogged, and the engine hums faintly, as though someone inside is waiting. Drawn by curiosity, the girl moves toward the vehicle, her small footsteps crunching in the snow. Suddenly, she hears a voice. It's soft at first, barely a whisper, but it stops her in her tracks. She turns around and is startled to see a man emerging from the shadows. His skin is pale, almost ghostly, and his appearance is unnerving. There's something deeply wrong about the way he moves, slow and deliberate, as if every step is calculated to instill fear. The man addresses her with a strange familiarity, calling her the almost birthday girl. His words are accompanied by an eerie smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He mentions that he wore his long legs that day, a cryptic phrase that only adds to the unsettling atmosphere. This disturbing encounter lingers like a dark cloud, setting the tone for what is to come. Fast forward 20 years to the 1990s. FBI agent Lee Harker is introduced, a sharp and determined investigator who has spent her career solving difficult cases. She's partnered with Agent Fisk, and the two are currently working on a routine assignment in a quiet neighborhood. Lee has an uncanny ability to sense things that others miss, a skill that has made her a valuable asset to the Bureau. On this particular day, she trusts her instincts and zeroes in on a specific house, even though they've barely begun their search. Fisk, somewhat skeptical but trusting her judgment, knocks on the door. The world seems to slow down in that moment, a quiet tension filling the air. Suddenly a shot rings out, shattering the calm. Fisk is struck in the head and Lee reacts instantly. She storms into the house, her gun drawn, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She finds the shooter, a man sitting at the end of his bed, his hands raised in surrender. The scene is almost surreal. Despite the violence, there's an eerie calm about the man, as if he expected this confrontation all along. After the incident, Lee meets with her superior, Agent Carter. He's a seasoned agent who has seen his fair share of bizarre cases, but even he is impressed by Lee's abilities. He speculates that she might have some form of psychic intuition, a theory that Lee dismisses but can't entirely deny. Carter assigns her to a complex and chilling case, a series of family murders spanning decades. In each case, the father was the killer, brutally murdering his wife and children before taking his own life. The crime scenes all contain strange letters filled with satanic symbols and coded messages, all signed by someone calling themselves Longlegs. As Lee delves deeper into the investigation, Carter invites her to his home for dinner. There she meets his wife Anna and their young daughter Ruby. The warm, familial atmosphere contrasts sharply with the dark world Lee has been immersed in. Ruby, an innocent and lively girl, takes an immediate liking to Lee and invites her to her upcoming birthday party. During their conversation, Lee reveals that she once dreamed of becoming an actress before choosing a life of law enforcement. It's a rare moment of vulnerability, a glimpse into the person Lee might have been if her life had taken a different path. Outside of work, Lee lives in isolation in a remote cabin. The solitude suits her, allowing her to focus on her cases without distraction. However, her relationship with her mother, Ruth, is strained. They rarely speak, and when they do, the conversations are brief and tense. Ruth has become increasingly religious, a fanatic even, and her constant urging for Lee to pray only deepens the divide between them. Lee tries to reach out to her mother, but their interactions are stilted and uncomfortable. One evening, as Lee is going over case files, a loud pounding on her door startles her. She quickly grabs her gun and moves cautiously toward the door. Peering through the window, she sees a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the woods that surround her home. The figure is unnervingly still, watching her. Lee steps outside, prepared to confront whoever or whatever is lurking in the darkness. But as she approaches, the figure slips away, disappearing into the trees. When Lee returns to her house, she finds that the intruder has left something behind, an envelope with a strange, ominous message. Do not open until January 14th. Ignoring the warning, Lee opens the envelope and finds a birthday card. The card is covered in satanic symbols and coded messages, disturbingly similar to the letters found at the Longlegs crime scenes. Inside is a cryptic passage from the Book of Revelation. I stood upon the sand of the sea, along with a gruesome threat that sends chills down Lee's spine. It's clear that whoever sent this card knows about her involvement in the Longlegs case and knows far too much about her personal life. The next day, Carter brings Lee in to investigate another grisly murder attributed to Longlegs. Once again, the father is the perpetrator, having brutally murdered his entire family before taking his own life. As Lee and Carter comb through the crime scene, they discover the decomposing body of one of the daughters. The sight is horrifying, yet it only strengthens Lee's resolve to stop the killer. Back at the station, Lee presents her findings to Carter. She has noticed a pattern. All the murders occurred within 6 days of the daughters' birthdays, and all on the 14th of various months. When plotted on a linear calendar, the dates form a triangle, with one date conspicuously missing. Lee concludes that this missing date is when Longlegs will strike again. However, Lee keeps one crucial detail to herself. She does not mention the birthday card she received from Longlegs. The possibility of an accomplice gnaws at her mind. Could Longlegs be working with someone, or are there multiple people aiding him in his horrific deeds? Meanwhile, somewhere in the same area, Longlegs is revealed in all his terrifying glory. His appearance is grotesque, stringy hair, bloated features, and skin so pale it appears almost unnatural. He moves through the world like a specter, his presence unsettling to anyone who crosses his path. At a local store, he attempts to intimidate a teenage clerk, but she dismisses him as just another strange, creepy guy. Longlegs returns to his home where he rants and raves, his madness consuming him. As the investigation continues, Lee and Carter turn their attention to the camera family. Years ago, the father murdered his wife and children, but one daughter, Carrie Ann, survived because she was at school when the massacre occurred. Now an adult, Carrie Ann has been living in a psychiatric ward, catatonic for almost 2 decades. Lee and Carter visit the family farm, hoping to uncover new evidence. Inside the barn where the murders took place, they find something disturbing beneath the floorboards. A lifelike doll that bears a striking resemblance to young Carrie Ann. Inside the doll's head, they discover a mysterious metal ball. When examined closely, the ball emits strange static noises that trigger terrifying visions in Lee's mind. The examiner who analyzes the doll claims he even heard it speak his ex-wife's name, adding another layer of horror to the investigation. Determined to get answers, Lee visits Carrie Ann at the psychiatric ward. The orderly explains that Carrie Ann had been in a vegetative state for years, showing no signs of recovery. However, she recently came out of her catatonia after a man visited her, someone the orderly described as unsettling. When Lee speaks to Carrie Ann, the woman's voice is monotone and emotionless as she recounts the day her father murdered their priest and then her mother. Chillingly, Carrie Ann reveals that she would now do anything the man asked her to do, even if it meant killing Lee. The encounter leaves Lee deeply disturbed. It's clear that Longlegs' influence runs deeper than anyone imagined. Carter confronts Lee with a shocking revelation. She had an encounter with Longlegs when she was just a child, something she had long repressed. The realization sends Lee into a spiral of confusion and fear. Desperate for answers, she visits her mother, Ruth, hoping to make sense of the fragmented memories. Ruth, ever the religious zealot, tells Lee that she should count herself lucky to have grown up and survived, hinting that her survival was not just a matter of chance. Lee discovers a photograph among Ruth's belongings, a picture taken by a young Lee, capturing the moment Longlegs visited their home all those years ago. The photograph jolts Lee's memory, and she brings this crucial piece of evidence to Carter. With the photo in hand, the FBI tracks down Longlegs, who is revealed to be Dale Ferdinand Cobble. The capture is a significant victory, but the terror is far from over. In a chilling interrogation video, Longlegs stares directly into the camera, singing "Happy Birthday" to Lee with a malevolent grin. Lee confronts him in the interrogation room, determined to uncover the truth about his accomplices. Longlegs, however, speaks in cryptic riddles, claiming to serve the man downstairs, and urging Lee to ask her mother about his partners in crime. Before he can reveal more, Longlegs suddenly and violently smashes his face into the table, disfiguring himself beyond recognition. He dies shortly after, leaving Lee and Carter with more questions than answers. Feeling the weight of the investigation bearing down on her, Lee returns to her mother's house, bringing along her colleague, Agent Browning. The house is eerily quiet when they arrive. As they search for Ruth, a gunshot echoes through the halls. Browning falls to the ground, dead. Lee rushes to find her mother standing over his body holding a shotgun. Ruth's face is expressionless, her eyes cold and distant. In her hand, she clutches a doll that bears an uncanny resemblance to a young Lee. Ruth mutters a prayer, her voice filled with a strange mix of resignation and defiance. She proclaims that she's finally free from his control before raising the shotgun and firing at the doll. The doll explodes into a cloud of black smoke, revealing a metal ball inside, identical to the one found in Carrie Ann's doll. Ruth's confession is both heartbreaking and horrifying. She reveals that she made a deal with Longlegs to protect her daughter, offering her services as an accomplice in exchange for Lee's safety. Ruth had been delivering cursed dolls to the families targeted by Longlegs, each one containing dark magic that drove the fathers to commit their horrific acts. Longlegs had been living in the basement of the Harker home all those years, a constant presence that Ruth had tried to keep at bay through prayer and sacrifice. Ruth justifies her actions as necessary to protect Lee from eternal damnation, but her words only deepen Lee's sense of betrayal. The revelation shatters Lee's world. The doll that Ruth destroyed had been the source of the psychic connection she had felt throughout the investigation, guiding her toward the truth. The realization that her mother had been complicit in the murders is too much for Lee to bear. Overwhelmed by the weight of the knowledge, she loses consciousness as Ruth's voice fades into the background, leaving her alone with the nightmares she has uncovered. When Lee finally regains consciousness, she finds herself back in her childhood bedroom. The room is exactly as she remembers it, down to the smallest detail. The phone rings, piercing the silence. Lee picks it up, and a familiar, distorted voice greets her. It's Longlegs taunting her once again. He reminds her that she's missing Ruby's birthday, a statement that sends a jolt of panic through Lee. Realizing that Ruby is in immediate danger, Lee races to the shed, grabbing her mother's car, and speeds toward Carter's home. Arriving at the house, Lee's worst fears are confirmed. Ruth is already there, holding a doll that resembles Ruby. Carter and his family are in a trance, unable to resist Ruth's influence. The scene is nightmarish. Anna is in the kitchen, her hands covered in blood, and Carter stands motionless, a knife in his hand. Ruth, in a calm and authoritative voice, instructs them to continue with the birthday celebration, urging Carter and Anna to cut the cake. Lee acts quickly, shooting Carter to prevent him from harming Ruby. Ruth, enraged by the interruption, lunges at Lee with a knife. In the chaos, Lee fires again, and Ruth falls to the ground, dead. Exhausted and emotionally drained, Lee cradles Ruby in her arms. She tries to destroy the Ruby doll, but her gun is empty. With no other option, she carries Ruby out of the house, leaving behind the horrors that have torn her life apart. The night air is cold and unforgiving as Lee walks away, Ruby safe but traumatized by the events that have unfolded. The film's final moments take us back to the FBI interrogation room. Longlegs, who should be dead, sits casually at the table. His face is disfigured, but his eyes are alive with malicious glee. He grins at the camera, his laughter filling the room. "Hail Satan!" he whispers mockingly, blowing a kiss to the audience before the screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of dread. That's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to Recap Nest so that you won't miss any more stories like this. Stay safe and see you next time.